It's tax season, and you're sitting there doing the math. You worked hard this year. You paid your bills on time. You even managed to save a little. But then you see the headline. The richest 1% added more wealth this year than the bottom half of the country combined. And something about that doesn't add up. Because you're not lazy. You're not bad with money. You go to work, you budget, you do everything you're supposed to do. So why does it feel like the gap between you and rich keeps getting wider, not closer? Here's the thing. Most people assume rich people stay rich because they already had money to begin with. Inheritance, luck, connections, and sure, that's part of the story for some. But that's not actually the main engine. The real reason rich people keep getting richer has almost nothing to do with how much money they start with. It has everything to do with how their money is structured. And once you understand that structure, you start to see it everywhere. My name is Aku, and I spend way too much time thinking about why some people's money seems to multiply while everyone else's money just sits there. If you've ever felt like wealth is rigged in favor of people who already have it, make sure to hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Working for money and owning money are two completely different financial categories. Most people live their entire lives in category one.
You trade hours for dollars. You work, you get paid, the money arrives, you spend some, you save some. It's a straight line. Hour in, dollar out. But rich people, even ones who also work jobs, build a second line running parallel to the first. That second line is ownership. Owning assets that earn money whether they personally show up or not. Here's what most people don't realize. The moment you own an asset, something strange happens. Time starts working for you instead of against you. Let's look at the math. Imagine someone earns $70,000 a year from a job. If they stopped working, that income stops the same day. Now imagine someone owns $500,000 in stocks, earning an average 8% per year. That's $40,000 a year showing up whether they're sleeping, traveling, or doing absolutely nothing. One person's income depends entirely on their hours. The other person's income depends on their assets. That's the first piece of the puzzle. But here's where it gets really interesting, because owning assets isn't actually the hardest part. The hardest part is what rich people do differently with the money they don't spend, which leads to the real mechanism behind growing wealth: compounding ownership over time. Let's break this into the actual step-by-step pattern. Step 1. Convert income into assets, not just savings. A lot of people save money, but saving and owning are not the same thing. Cash in a bank account is parked. Cash converted into stocks, real estate, or a business stake is working. Step 2. Reinvest the returns instead of spending them. This is the part almost nobody talks about. When an asset earns money, rich people often don't pocket it and spend it. They put it right back into more assets. That single habit is the difference between linear growth and
Exponential growth. Let's look at a quick example. Imagine two people each have $20,000 invested, earning 8% a year. Person A withdraws and spends their gains every year. After 20 years, they still have $20,000, plus whatever cash they spent along the way. Person B reinvests every gain. After 20 years, that same $20,000 becomes roughly $93,000. Same starting point, same return rate. One person spent the harvest, the other replanted it. That's the entire secret hiding behind the rich get richer. It's not a secret club, it's repeated reinvestment, decade after decade. Now, here's the part most people miss completely. Step 3. Use leverage the right way. Not the risky, gambling kind of leverage, strategic leverage. Rich people often borrow money, not because they're broke, but because borrowed money can be used to acquire more income-producing assets, while their own existing assets keep growing untouched. A small business owner might take a low-interest loan to buy equipment that generates more revenue than the loan costs. A real estate investor might use a mortgage to control a property worth far more than their initial cash down.
Their own money stays invested and compounding, while the borrowed money does the heavy lifting elsewhere. You might be thinking, okay, Aku, but that sounds risky. And you're right, it can be, if it's reckless. But used carefully, leverage just means making money do double duty. That's a structural advantage most people never use, simply because nobody ever taught them
the difference between dangerous debt and productive debt. Let me give you a quick analogy. Imagine wealth building is like a snowball rolling down a hill. At the bottom of the hill, the snowball is tiny. Pushing it forward takes real effort. That's most people's first few years of saving and investing. Slow, unexciting, barely noticeable. But the further it rolls, the bigger it gets. And the bigger it gets, the faster it picks up even more snow without extra effort. Rich people aren't pushing harder. They just started rolling earlier, and they never stopped to eat the snowball along the way. Now here's the crazy part. Step 4. Time becomes a multiplier, not just a measurement. Let's say two people both invest
$500 a month at 8% annual returns. Person A starts at age 25. Person B starts at age 35, investing the exact same amount, same return. By age 65, Person A has roughly $1.75 million. Person B, despite doing everything else identically, ends up with around $750,000. Same discipline, same monthly amount. The only difference is 10 extra years of compounding. That 10-year head start is worth nearly $1 million. This is why wealth gaps widen instead of closing. It's not that rich people are smarter with each individual dollar. It's that their money has simply been compounding for longer, often because they started the process earlier, sometimes by decades. So now you might be asking, okay, but I didn't start at 25. Does that mean I'm
already behind? Not necessarily, because here's what most people don't realize. The process doesn't require massive amounts of money to begin. It requires starting the structure now instead of waiting for the right moment that never actually arrives. Every year you delay isn't just a year of missed contributions. It's a year of missed compounding. And compounding is the part that actually does the heavy lifting later. Let's recap the real reasons rich people keep getting richer. First, they convert income into owned assets instead of letting cash sit idle. Second, they reinvest returns instead of spending them, turning growth into more growth. Third, they use leverage strategically to acquire more assets without draining their own capital. And fourth, they let time multiply their results, often because they started the compounding clock years before everyone else. None of this requires luck. None of it requires a six-figure salary. It requires structure, patience, and starting before you feel ready. Because here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Rich people don't get richer because the system is secretly rigged just for them. They get richer because they figured out the actual rules of the game, while most people were only ever taught how to follow paychecks, not how to build assets.
If this video helped you see wealth building a little differently, make sure to hit subscribe. And I'm curious about something. Are you currently in the income stage, working for every dollar? Or have you started building the asset stage, where your money starts working for you? Let me know in the comments. Because the moment you shift from earning money to owning money, that's when the gap finally starts closing instead of widening.